Hello everyone, I'm Jenny Bryan, and I would like to thank you for joining my session at the Bridge Student Leadership Summit. As I know many of you are new to the executive roles in your student organizations, you may be struggling to decide what sort of approach you will take to leadership. I would like to introduce you to the situational leadership theory, which allows you to get the results from the followers that you are after because it is prescriptive based on the follower's needs, not your preferred leadership style. This model encourages leaders to first analyze a situation, including things such as determining the importance of the task, the timeline, and the skills and motivation of the employees available to do the work. One then synthesizes the information to discern how to adjust the leadership style applied. In this way, I believe that situational leadership is a wonderful approach for developing leaders because it forces them to be very measured, very intentional in their approach, and ultimately very effective in producing results. In the process of analyzing the situation, a leader using this approach will assess the follower's readiness based on the levels of competence each individual has with the task, as well as the level of commitment to the exercise at hand. In the 1990s, Blanchard and Associates revised some earlier works by Hergé and Blanchard, delineating a continuum of developmental levels progressing from a developing follower to a developed one. On the developing end of the range is D1, or someone who is new to a task, otherwise known as an enthusiastic beginner. This follower has low competence in relation to the job, but is eager to learn. This is the new member in your organization, the person who has only attended one meeting but has signed himself up for every committee. The next phase is D2, or a disillusioned learner. She has gained some familiarity with her role and therefore some competence, but her commitment has waned as some of the newness is worn off. The D3, or capable but cautious person, has received a relatively high level of competence, but his commitment is intermittent, as he may be splitting his focus with another organization. Finally, the D4 developmental level is the self-reliant achiever and is a very valuable member of your group. This person illustrates a high level of competence, historical knowledge, and a deep commitment because she has invested so much in the organization. Once the follower's readiness or developmental level has been identified, the situational leader must use that information to apply the appropriate approach that will most effectively manage someone with that particular level of competence and commitment for the task. The leader adapts to each individual's needs by adjusting the degree to which he or she administers directive or supportive behaviors in order to elicit a desired response. Directive behaviors are those which are focused on accomplishing certain goals and are meant to build competence, whereas supportive behaviors are intended to build commitment by promoting motivation and confidence. As such, a situational leader uses a high directive, low supportive, or directing approach when working with a D1 enthusiastic beginner who needs help in building competence. This does not mean that the leader is dictatorial, but just that a greater amount of time is spent instructing and closely supervising the follower in order to train him or her. Once a follower gains a little experience and competence and enters the D2 disillusioned learner level, a situational leader will increase the level of support but still apply lots of direction, much like a coach would for a struggling athlete. When followers enter the D3 or cautious but capable level, effective leaders realize that they are most appropriate in a supporting role, where less directive behaviors are needed because of the individual's competence. In these instances, supporting leaders encourage followers to become more confident in their abilities by providing high-level support. Finally, when followers progress to the D4 level of self-reliant achievers, leaders respond by giving them space, declining in both supportive and directive behaviors. They merely delegate tasks their way without feeling the need to direct how they are accomplished. So now we'll talk through some scenarios to illustrate how the developmental levels and leadership approaches intersect. Let's pretend that you are the president of the student organization and you have 4 different members come to you for guidance. The first is a new member, a marketing major, who excitedly offers to develop a social media campaign to raise recruitment numbers. Because she is new and has low competence, albeit high commitment, you take a directing approach in which you clearly state your expectations for how the organization is to be represented. The second member is the chair of one of your committees and is at a D2 developmental level. Although she has taken part in countless meetings, she has never before led one and she is nervous. You take the coaching approach and take the time to go through the agenda with her, making some alterations, then assuring her that she will do great. Next, you are approached by a long-standing executive board member of the organization. He is very competent and so well respected by his peers that he is routinely asked for help with their projects, and he's become overwhelmed. You take a supporting approach, honoring his competency and his commitment. You listen to his concerns, praise him for his efforts to support the organization, and validate the solutions he brings to the table. Finally, the vice president of the organization comes to remind you that the annual fundraiser is fast approaching. The VP has been instrumental in the planning in the past, so you take a delegating approach and encourage him to take the reins this year. The situational leadership theory is very practical for leading large groups because it can be adapted for use among individuals with varying levels of competence and commitment. As evidenced with these scenarios, in a short amount of time, you employed 4 different leadership approaches to 4 different situations, thereby effectively meeting the needs of all involved. Well, that concludes our session, but I would encourage you to explore more about the situational leadership theory and consider whether it might be appropriate for you and your organization. I have listed a few references to get you started, but there are countless materials on the subject if you would like to learn more. Thank you again for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of your semester.